Let me take you back to America's Gilded Age in the late 19th century. It was a time of rapid economic growth, but also a period of gross materialism and blatant political corruption. The wealthy grew even wealthier and looked to wrestle control of every facet of human life. One of the most powerful and corrupt robber barons of the time is sitting there at the table, financier Jay Gould. Gould used every underhanded trick from bribing public officials to massively manipulating stocks. He had control over railroad lines and newspapers, and for a time, he single-handedly controlled America's telegraph wires. And with those wires, Jay Gould controlled the flow of information in this country. Fast forward to today. You can make the case we are living in a new Gilded Age, where you have people with extraordinary wealth, like Elon Musk, as Axios points out, looking to follow in the footsteps of people like Gould. And they want to control everything from the courts to politicians to the leading forums for information sharing. And today it became official. Twitter accepted Musk's $44 billion offer to buy the company and put control of this dominant social media platform into his hands. It is not enough for the richest man in the world to try to replace agencies like NASA and send people to near space. He also wants to control what he calls the town square.
Twitter has become kind of the de facto town square. It's just really important that people have both the reality and the perception that they are able to speak freely within the bounds of the law.
Now Elon Musk will own the town square. With me now, Anand Giridharadas, publisher of The Ink and author of Winners Take All, the elite charade of changing the world. So, Anand, my friend, what does it mean for Elon Musk to privately own the town square?
It's such a good analogy, and I love that setup, except I would make one disanalogy from the period you talked about. Those people 100 years ago did not own portals into a billion people's minds in real time, right? The nature of the technology is now such that if you are now Elon Musk or a Mark Zuckerberg or others, it is not just owning a newspaper or owning the railroads and owning this and that. It is specifically this particular kind of straw into the live consciousness of a very large chunk of humanity at all times. There's studies that have been shown that this power can be used to tilt elections if someone were to want to use it that way. And so what you're seeing right now, and I called it winners take all for a reason. This is the winners take all playbook. First, you just try to make money. That's the kind of foundational overriding goal. But if you just do that, you're going to have regulatory pressure. You're going to have people mad at you after a certain point. You're going to have all kinds of problems. And so what you do is you take the spoils of that money making and you buy political influence in Washington. You fund super PACs. You fund things like the Federalist Society, different approaches that you know well. And then you start investing in rigging the discourse. It's not enough to just rig law and policy. You want to rig the discourse. You want to make sure you control the terms on which people can talk back at you. Right. I'm curious what the safeguards are at Twitter after this acquisition. Do people get to read the DMs of the leading dissidents and journalists and regulators in the world? I have DM'd over the years with people who work in governments, people who have critical positions relative to all kinds of authority. I'm curious, what are the safeguards preventing the world's richest man? I'm sure there are some. I'd love to hear what they are. But this is truly the winners take all world where not just, as you said, not just one form of power, but every form of power is used to purchase the next, and up to the point where we are fully encircled and democracy itself is suffocated.
I mean, I would doubt that there would be very many safeguards. I mean, Elon Musk calls himself a free speech absolutist. Well, first of all, that's BS, because he has a long history of literally threatening to sue bloggers who say things he doesn't like about him or who post things about Tesla that he doesn't like. His history is that it's free speech, sure, but don't say anything about me I don't like because I will sue you. He also, I think, is showing, I think it's a tell, and I don't know if you agree with this. The right has made multiple attempts to remake Twitter. They've had Getter, which I'm sorry, it does sound like a porn name. They've had Parler. They've had Gab, which is full of Nazis. They've had all, and it never works because the thing is they don't want to talk to each other. They want to talk to us. They want to talk to the culture. They want to, if they were where Black Twitter was not, they would be sad because they couldn't attack Black people. Elon Musk tweeted today, "I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter because that is what free speech means." Charles Blow had already beaten him to the door and said, "I'm done." Lots of people were trying to get on Counter Social today because Counter Social is actually moderated and doesn't allow people to attack people. Do you see this as a tell that they can't recreate Twitter because Twitter, without us, without the regular people, isn't useful or entertaining to them?
I think that's very true. And I also think this free speech issue needs to be unpacked because, like a lot of issues promoted by people like this, the actual thing they're saying is not the actual issue. So the actual issue, I think, there is a feeling that people like Elon Musk propagate, and it's certainly widespread on the fascist right today, that this is a time of censorship and control and suppression of ideas on the right by these social platforms and other institutions. Well, what's actually been going on is that there have been modest, pretty inadequate, modest, slight efforts by some of these platforms to solve an actual free speech issue, which is that so many human beings feeling so unsafe and being so unsafe when they use these platforms, being bullied, being harassed, being brigaded, being doxxed for the crime of being female or of color or both, that you were actually drastically limiting the amount of speech out there because people just don't want to play in that kind of sandbox. And these platforms have understood that and have made faint, modest efforts to address that by saying, let's not have as much Nazism on the platform. Let's not have as much misogyny and bullying. Let's still have a lot of it, but less. Anyone who's ever actually reported a tweet knows that it almost never still is shut down, but they've tried. And this is what's called censorship. Elon Musk lives in a world in which the only kind of free speech is white men feeling free to say whatever the hell they want. And what he doesn't understand, what a lot of those folks don't understand, is speech is actually freer when everybody not only has the opportunity to have an account and able to afford a phone to be able to tweet, but can feel safe, can know that they're not going to get harassed, can know that they're not going to get outed, can know they're not going to get piled on by the kind of astroturfed stands of some very rich man. And this future in which there would actually be more abundant and equitable speech terrifies the crap out of people like Elon Musk.
Indeed. I mean, there was a time when anybody who was Jewish on Twitter, if you expressed views that were anywhere to the left of Donald Trump, you would get the into the oven response almost immediately. And these people literally follow you so that 10 seconds after you tweet anything, you get the monkey attacks and it's a constant assault. And without the ability to assault, they're not entertained. They're not entertained.
Correct.
And so they want to abuse. And in their mind, that's free speech, as you said, because a certain type of person must be able to harass you. Baby, no, you don't have the right to harass anybody. People can leave. They can choose to not be in that space anymore. And some people will. I can tell you, look, if y'all want to follow me on Counter Social, I'm at Joanne Reed. Okay, I'm just going to throw that out there. And I don't own nothing of it. I'm getting nothing for saying that. I'm just saying there are other places that people can go. Anand Giridharadas, thank you very much. Still ahead.